Hi everyone! I was looking through my cookbooks for recipes to make for fall, and I noticed that Claire Saffitz has not one but two apple pastry recipes, one in each of her published books. I read through both of them, and while they are a little similar, they do have some differences, and I just couldn't decide which I wanted to make for this week. So I decided to make a two-parter. I'm going to make them both. This week, I'm making the easy apple galette from her book, What's for Dessert? And then next week, I'm going to make her apple tart from Dessert Person. So come bake with me. So for our galette, we're going to start with our dough, and I am going to cut up the butter into cubes. She actually recommends slices, but I'm going to do cubes. And then put them in the fridge so that while I do the rest of the things, they can continue being chilled. You want cold butter anytime you're doing pastry. Into the fridge this goes. We're going to start with our flour, sugar, and our salt. Whisk to combine. That looks good. All right, now we're going to add back in our butter that's been in the fridge. The recipe recommends doing this by hand, but my hands are bothering me today, so I'm going to use my pastry cutter to kind of incorporate the butter. This is another reason why I like to cut it into little cubes, so you're closer to that end goal of pea size as opposed to little slabs. All right, that looks nice and crumbly. We're gonna move to our work surface in the next step. Using the straight edge of a bench scraper, chop the mixture, breaking clumps of butter until it's broken down into small uniform pieces. Pretty good, so I'm going to see if it'll come together. Still feels very crumbly, even if I can get it into like large cohesive pieces. All right, we're gonna incorporate some ice water to try to get this bit to come together. All right, so we're supposed to use our hands to get this into a square. This just seems way too crumbly for me. I am gonna add in some more water because the second I try to roll this out, it's just gonna fall apart. Alright, let's see if this rolls. If it does, great. If it doesn't, we'll add more water. I'm not applying much pressure, and it's just sort of falling apart. So I guess we'll add more water. This is a very weird dough recipe. I've never made anything like this before. Yeah, there's just no cohesion here. With the additional water, I'm starting to feel it come together, so I'm gonna try a little bit more. This is happening because I keep forgetting to flour my rolling pin. I mean, this should produce a pretty flaky dough. It's flaky now. It's
once I get it to come together. All right, well, okay. So we're gonna cut the dough in half. Sure, that looks like half. And we're gonna put our bench scraper to lift 1/2 up. This is gonna go well. You know what? Mike has a thing that might help. This might help a little. Aha! Okay. I mean, I can see how this will be flaky if it ever comes together. And we're gonna pat it. And we're gonna do that again, going this way. Use this enormous spatula. Whoop, no. Okay. This is definitely not the easiest pastry dough I've ever made. Okay. All right, so it's going to eventually be round. So she says use my hand to round out the corners. And then we're gonna put it in some plastic wrap and in the fridge. So wish me luck. All right, into the fridge for 2 hours. So we're gonna start building our pastry, and the first thing we have to do, whoops, is slice the apples. I'm a big fan of this apple core. It makes coring apples so much easier. Apples sliced. Now we will start to build our pastry. Now we're going to make our sprinkling sugar. If you're going to add in vanilla seeds, you would mix them in with this, but I'm just going to do vanilla extract because, again, vanilla beans are expensive. And I don't want to pay $25 for a vanilla bean. I keep thinking I'm ready to roll out my pastry dough and then realizing that there's something else that I need to do before I can do that. So here we need to mix our heavy cream with the vanilla extract because I'm using that instead of vanilla seeds. Pour that in, mix that up. There we go, vanilla cream. All right, now I think I'm ready to roll out the pastry dough. Alright, I'm going to flour my work surface, and the smart thing to do would have been to put this in the fridge in a round, but yeah, that didn't happen. So we're going to roll it out in a round now. She waxed this a few times. I'm not sure why, but she says it helps, so sure. I mean, it's fun, and it scared the cats, so there you go. Alright, we'll see how this rolls out. I have some doubts based on how difficult it was to put together in the first place. Clearly, my butter is too cold for this in the dough, but we are making some progress. Using some of these edge pieces that came off to like repair the cracks as they happen. I'm not sure how well this is gonna work out. I definitely have my doubts. I mean, I really do think it will be flaky if I can get it held together long enough to bake. I'm gonna try to roll this up on my rolling pin, recenter it on the mat, and cut out the edges, and hopefully, I have 12 inches of round dough I can use. Fingers crossed. 12-inch line is here. It's hard to do this when you can't see it all. Alright, is it perfect? No. Is it close enough? Maybe. Let's squish some of this into here. I mean, the nice thing is, no one's really gonna complain. Alright, that's, I think, as close as I'm gonna get it. Yep. Alright, so we're gonna transfer to our baking sheet. That's what that's called. So the way I like to transfer dough is I like to roll it up on my rolling pin very gently, being very careful with all of the little bits of dough. That went okay. This is where I remind you I am not a professional chef. That's the whole point of my channel, is I am not a professional chef, and to see how hard this is for the average baker, I have to say this one's kind of hard. Especially for something that's supposed to be easy. Alright, now we build. Alright, so now we're going to fold some of this over to make like a border. She says about 1/2 inch. Sure. We'll give that a go. It's not gonna be perfect. I think we can all agree on that. Okay, that's a border. Squish it together a little bit so that hopefully we won't have too much leakage. I did preheat the oven to 350 like she said. And we're gonna put the breadcrumbs down and make them be an even layer. And now we arrange the apple slices. And we have quite a few. I should probably try to keep the apple slices inside the border. You know, there is a reason she goes straight. I'm gonna do that too. I'd like to make it pretty, but I think if I tried to do that, it would take me all day, and I don't have all day. I'd like to eat this in my lifetime. That's my apples. Alright, so now I'm going to brush my vanilla cream mixture over my border, and then I'm going to drizzle the rest over the apples. Oh, this is going to make an amazing mess. That's the cream. And we're going to sprinkle the sugar over the top of the whole thing. All 1/2 cup of it. Now it goes into the fridge for 10 to 15 minutes. It's been 15 minutes. Our galette is now out of the fridge, and we're going to put it in the oven. And I completely forgot how long it's supposed to be in the oven for. Hold on. We're going to bake for 1 hour. Alright, the galette is done. We definitely had some seepage, but it looks pretty good. So we're going to set this over here. And I'm going to set that over there and prepare the apricot glaze that goes on top. So we need to heat up our apricot jam. Alright, we're just looking for this to like be kind of melty. And then we're going to strain it and then brush it on the warm galette. Turn the oven off. doesn't need to be on anymore. Alright, that looks good enough, I guess. When you have a very tiny kitchen, you learn that your stovetop is actually a countertop. Ow, the Galette pan is hot. Press it through. Again, as we've discussed, the Galette pan is hot. Slide that over. Slide that over more. We're just going to brush the whole top. Okay, we're going to let that cool a lot before trying it. We might even wait until tomorrow morning.
Here are my final thoughts about the easy apple galette. As far as eating it goes, Nat Cat pronounced this to be delicious, which is high praise for a 10-year-old who says she doesn't like baked fruit. Mike said it was good, but mostly just a thinner apple pie, making him wish that there was apple pie so there'd be more apples. I thought it was really good. The apples maintained their appley flavor and the pastry held up well. It's crisp and flaky and pretty much everything you want in a pastry. There was some juice leakage when I pulled it from the oven, but it wasn't nearly as much as I expected. Was this easy to make? Yes and no. The recipe breaks up into two parts, the pastry and the apple. Actually, putting together the apple part of the galette was quite easy. The pastry, however, was more of a struggle. I read and reread the instructions many times. And I stared at the pictures, and I reread the instructions. And getting the dough for the all-purpose pastry flaky dough to come together was a real struggle. I've made pastry dough before, and this was honestly the most difficult time I've ever had bringing one together. This is really the first time I've ever had an issue getting a Claire Saffitz recipe to work exactly as described, so probably there's something that I'm doing wrong or just not doing at all. I'm going to keep trying. I plan on continuing to bake out of what's for dessert, so I'm sure that this pastry dough will come up again, and I'll continue trying to make it. However, she does say that you absolutely can use store-bought puff pastry, and if you are someone who prefers not to struggle, I would strongly recommend going that route. She has helpful instructions on how to prepare the pre-made dough, and I'm sure not making your own pastry will make your life so much easier. The real difference is that the puff pastry will be just that, puff pastry, whereas the one in the book is much more like a well-made pie crust. So, the real question is, how does this compare to the apple tart? Recipe and dessert person? Well, you'll have to come back next week for that answer. If you've made it this far, thanks so much for watching. As always, if you have a recipe you'd like to see me try, please put it in the comments. If you've not done so, please consider subscribing and following along as I try more recipes that are supposedly for the home cook. And like this video if you enjoyed it. I'll see you next week.